r/askReddit. What's the worst thing you've ever done? Hired a guy I knew in high school to work for me. Things didn't go so well, and after 6 months of trying to help him with his performance, I finally let him go. We had become friends, so decided to hang out anyway. He had mentioned this girl he was friends with that he was trying to actually date. I felt bad with how things had gone with the job, so I decided to try to be his wingman. I threw some parties and always made sure to invite her and get them to hang out as much as possible to create opportunities for him to close the deal with this girl. She and I just had our 8-year wedding anniversary this year. Haha, that made me laugh. May I ask how you asked her out, and what your friend did after? She actually asked me out. She loved all the stuff I kept inviting them out to and just thought I was interesting. Apparently she had a talk prepared for him if he ever asked her out, so that was never going to happen anyway. My best friend's wedding day. My wife and I had been fighting that morning, but decided to attend my friend's ceremony anyway. We drove separate, and after the ceremony was over, I left to go home. After the approximately 30-minute drive home, my wife called me and asked where I was. When I told her, she said, "Jake is standing out here in the freezing cold wind wondering where his best friend is because he wants to take some pictures with him on his wedding day." I felt like absolute garbage. My wife had been mature enough to put our petty disagreement on hold so that we could support my friend, but I let it get the best of me and abandoned him. I will never forgive myself for that one. Why didn't you just drive back and take the pictures? Picture time is strict at weddings. Missed my cousins to smoke a joint with the valet. Still haven't lived that one down. We were friends with a girl in college. She sort of joined our group through a friend and was a bit of a loner but generally a nice girl. Really shy but nice, and we were probably the highlight of her college year before she dropped out. I got close with her to the point she asked me out, and I told her I'd rather just be friends. After a few months, the friend that introduced us told us that she was crazy and had mental problems and tried to sleep with everyone, and we believed him and then ghosted her. Turns out she had depression, which we made worse, and she ended hanging around with worse people that took her in, probably because they knew she was desperate. Looking back, I'm sure my friend was the one that tried to sleep with her, and when she rejected him, got us to ghost her. Haven't heard much about her since. I know from a mutual friend her depression got worse and we stopped talking to our other friend completely because he was a dickhead later on. We were young, but it's no excuse. We seriously harmed that girl's self-esteem and put her on the wrong path over something we should have confirmed. TLDR. A friend introduced a lonely girl with depression to our group, and then we ghosted her without a good reason and sent her into a bad group of guys. 7th grade, this kid had a lot of bullies. I saw a lot of people pick on him, so it felt normal. I never physically hurt him. I would just do things like take his hat and pass it between friends so he couldn't get it. I didn't see a problem because I thought bullies physically hurt others. Despite my bullying, he would still ask to play Xbox with me after school and did make up excuses because he wasn't cool to me. Not long after I started acting like a dick, he killed himself. Hung himself. He was 12 years old. I could have been playing games with him. I could have been texting him about school or girls or sports. But I was too busy being cool. So he died. I found his mom's Facebook shortly after he passed. I can't describe the feeling you get knowing there is someone suffering because of you. She still doesn't have her son. She never will, because I wanted to be cool. His death shaped my life and who I am. I grew up to apologize a lot, put others before myself, give every last bit of energy to someone who needs it more. I come to terms with my depression and anxiety by telling myself I'm going through what I've put him and his family through. I put him through the hell that I now live myself. To this day his family feels pain every day when they think of him, and I do as well. I wouldn't consider myself human otherwise. Rest in peace P. You asked me to play Portal 2 with you. For years after you passed, I tried playing through the Portal 2 co-op campaign, but I've never had a friend play more than 2 sessions with me. Nobody would ever play with me. I always found it ironic. Wish we could play together. Tried to make my sister drink my piss. You what? Oh no, this reminds me that I did make my sister drink my piss. We were little and taking a bath together, and I did the yoga bridge pose and thought I could pee while I was doing it. I underestimated the strength of my stream and shot it directly into her face after saying, "Hey, look at this." It still comes up every few months with my siblings. I will never live it down, and I honestly shouldn't. I was a young engineer just out of high school. They pushed me into inside sales because no one else wanted to do it, and I guess it sounded fancy having someone with an engineering background do shitty order entry. Anyways, a pregnant co-worker of mine who spoke Spanish left on maternity leave. As a result, they had to hire someone to replace her. She had zero engineering background and her only perk was she spoke Spanish. Anyways, they clearly favored her over me despite the fact I designed bolts, nuts and washers to a very decent degree. They fired me in favor of her. The same day I brought cookies for the entire office. Found out she requested to replace me and that she could do my job. She couldn't. Anyways, she lived nearby and didn't have a car. She had to walk, and I lived near her. Used to drive her from time to time. One day it was ridiculously windy and cold. She was underdressed and I wasn't working, just headed to an interview. I stopped, asked if she wanted a ride. She said yes please, and as she got close to my car I just locked the doors and drove away. It was horrible, and yet for some reason to this very day I still don't feel bad. I have a similar story. There was this really poor kid in school who wore glasses. The glasses were taped up, he couldn't afford new ones. We were playing dodgeball and I threw it at him and broke his glasses further to where they couldn't get fixed anymore by using tape or wires. He went without glasses for a long while. I don't even know if he received new ones, and if he did, how long it took. This always bothered me. I would think about it here and there. 15 years later I ran into him. I took that moment to revisit what happened and told him that I was very sorry about it. He thought it was funny and took it all in stride. He did remember that I broke his glasses in 3rd grade. I was on an 8-hour road trip driving up with my then girlfriend to see her family all the way from SoCal to a small town in NorCal. We were on northbound Highway 5, which becomes notoriously boring at one point. I had been driving almost non-stop for a few hours until I got stuck behind slow cars on a 2-lane highway. Now, there's not much you can do at this point except accept your fate and stay behind slow cars until they take their exits. For some reason, that didn't cut it for me. I decided to jump over the solid yellow line to the other side of the highway and I started gunning it to get past the slow cars. There was a handful of them in front, so I figured it would take a couple minutes. As I started the takeover on the oncoming lane, I saw the cars heading towards me on the oncoming lane. There was no room for me to merge back into my lane as I was still mid-takeover. I decided to literally play chicken and just kept going. Thankfully, the first car moved out of my way into the shoulder of the oncoming lane. At this point, girlfriend starts screaming to please stop, but I had somehow locked myself into this bizarre conviction that I could make it. The second car on the oncoming lane does the same thing, and at this point, girlfriend is bawling her eyes out and freaking out, which was understandable, but nothing was going through my brain except I knew all these cars would give way to me. The third car does the same thing, as did the fourth and the fifth, until I finally swerved back into my original lane after I got past the slow car that was holding up the traffic. I didn't stop and kept going while I was apologizing to girlfriend that what I did was probably traumatizing to her. Even after all these years, I still feel bad that I played chicken with 5 cars in a row while she was strapped on and had absolutely no choice in it. To this day, I can't figure out why I did it or why I was so convicted and confident that I could make it. I was bone sober, and I very much had no intention of killing myself nor her. During the rave scene of the early 2000s I was selling MDMA, not like boss style or anything. I was getting them for 20 and selling them for 25. It was mostly to feed my personal habit. Anyhow, I am at this club that only played techno, so that was where I worked. This girl comes up to me because people knew I was holding. She told me I could have her for the whole night for 1 pill. This girl was nasty though, on several fronts. Even twacked out of my mind I knew that she was not my type, plus you can't turn a profit on trading drugs for sex. She told me to extend her invitation to other people, so I set out to pimp this girl for $25 in my pocket. There were absolutely no takers and I felt bad for both of us at that point. TL. Doctor, I tried to pimp a girl out for one pill of E. I don't want to go into the details, but when I was in Iraq 18 years ago, I shot a guy in the crotch. I alternated between laughing at and feeling pity for the guy. If I hadn't missed, he stood up at the right instant, I'd have killed him. As things were, I think he survived, though he's probably in gitmo still. So some poor fucker is in a concentration camp with no dick. Damn.